What a pleasure it is to welcome the gentleman seated opposite us. He has been described by Elton John as the greatest songwriter on the planet and praised to the skies by the New York Times for his genuine originality and credited with being one of the great male vocalists and songwriters of his generation. All very fitting descriptions of Rufus Wainwright, the New York-born, Montreal-raised singer-songwriter who now calls Toronto his home as well.
Yes.
Rufus has released 7 studio albums, 3 DVDs, and 3 live albums, including the fantastic Grammy-nominated tribute to Judy Garland called Rufus Does Judy at Carnegie Hall. As if that weren't enough, he received Juno Awards in 1999 and 2002 and was nominated for Songwriter of the Year in 2008. And that's just scratching the surface of all that he's done in a remarkable career that started when he was just a teenager. Welcome to Toronto Files, Rufus, and thank you so much for finding the time to be with us. And let's start early on in your life with your remarkable family.
Yes.
Yeah.
You come from a musical dynasty. Your mother was the famous folk singer, Canadian folk singer, Kate McGarrigle. Your father, Loudon Wainwright III, a country icon.
Yes.
Growing up in a family that was so musical and so well known, did you feel pressure, or did you feel like it was natural and that you would go into the business, so to speak?
Well, I thankfully was ferried away at a young age, my sister and I, back to Canada. We were both, Martha Wainwright and I were born, who's also a great singer, were born in New York, but then our parents split up and Kate took us back home, and we lived in Montreal, which was at that time, especially in the early, in the 70s and early 80s, was a very unusual place because of separatism, and there was this, there had been this exodus of English-speaking people. So we felt relatively unknown and sort of, covered up because of that general ambiance, but which I think was a good thing, and it was coupled with that, with incredible experiences of singing with Emmylou Harris or Linda Ronstadt occasionally, and certain stories that would sort of pop up where I'd be watching Bette Midler on TV and my mother would be like, "Oh yeah, I know Bette Midler." I mean, so it was a bit odd. On one hand, it was very low key. It seemed
kind of natural to you, I guess, if you were growing up with it.
Yeah.
With all these incredible talents coming through your house, almost literally, and with your mother and your aunt, the McGarrigle sisters, being 2 icons again in music.
Yeah.
When did you feel that you had the confidence to start your own singing and songwriting, even if it was bred in the bone?
Yeah, because whether it was my mother and my aunts, both of my aunts, or my father and his sister, my other aunt, Sloan Wainwright, everybody did it. And so there's a funny story where a sister of mine, Lexi, my youngest sister, she as a child, up until the age of about 6 or 7, thought that every human being had their own CD. So it was a bit like, it's just, I don't know, we just never really questioned it. And we started very young. Both Martha and I really demonstrated a lot of desire and will, and I think some talent when we were very small, and my mom really picked up on that and immediately, because of her experience in the industry, knowing how hard it is and how much time you need, started pretty young with us. So that was
So when you say started young, when did you?
5.
5.
Yeah,
and you were what,
5 or 6.
playing piano
playing
and
piano,
starting to sing?
singing, learning how to harmonize.
And you had obviously a natural talent for it. You could sit at a piano
I was
by
pretty
ear.
incessant. I was a little,
Nobody had to
bratty
tell you to go
show-off.
practice, Rufus.
No, not much. No.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. And so when did you feel the confidence to start writing, composing your own work?
Well, that started off pretty young as well. I think one of the main factors was that both my father and my mother very much wrote about their lives, their personal lives. In fact, their main conversation was through song, because they had a somewhat of a turbulent relationship. But they had all this material where I could actually really where I found out what actually happened in their lives. So it was this sort of third
So they were
language.
autobiographical in their own
So
approach.
it seemed like a good way to breach certain subjects that you didn't necessarily want to talk about at the dinner table.
Let's now fast forward
Okay.
to the Rufus Wainwright we see today.
Yeah.
You've collaborated with and performed with some of the great acts
Yes,
of the
yes.
late 20th century. I
Yes.
mean, Elton John, David Byrne, Boy George, Joni Mitchell.
Yeah,
I mean, these
yeah.
are
No, I've been
huge,
blessed.
huge
Been blessed.
stars. What's been your favorite collaboration?
Yeah.
And are there artists that you'd love to work with today but haven't?
Yeah, well, I mean, at one point I went through a short stint of singing a lot with Burt Bacharach. I sang on one of his albums, and then in doing some promotion in England, he accompanied me several times on some TV shows, and that was a real mind blow. I mean, thinking about from Marlene Dietrich to me, and all that lie in between. That was fantastic. Doing the shows with Joni Mitchell for her 70th birthday was an incredible treat.
We did that here in Toronto.
We did that here in Toronto for my husband's festival, Luminato.
Yeah.
So, which you are so obviously tied,
with my late
enamored of. Yes. So it's and then I'm trying to think of people in the future. I would like to sing with Bette Midler. I've been I've been campaigning a bit to do that, and it seems to be going well. So that's sort of who I've got my guns pointed at the moment.
Next opportunity. Okay. So in addition to being a celebrated pop singer and sort of crossover, you've made your name for yourself in the classical world and with opera.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about your first opera venture and also what you're working on now in that. And also, what got you started with opera to begin with? What was the attraction?
Well, I was a normal child until about the age of 13 when I experienced where I listened to a recording of Verdi's Requiem from top to bottom, and was after that experience was completely transformed into this opera fanatic, and subsequently, it's all I could really listen to or relate to for the next 10 years. I did immediately also know that I wasn't going to be, an opera singer or that I would. I mean, I did go to a conservatory. I went to McGill for a couple of years, but I always knew that I'd probably more likely be a songwriter or a pop musician. But opera became this kind of secret ingredient to my work, and also kind of place where I could get away from the mainstream a little bit and just focus on music. So I did that, and then I ended up writing an opera, Prima Donna, which has now been released on Deutsche Grammophon, and it was actually partially premiered in Toronto for the Luminato Festival.
In the UK first, and then
in the UK,
Toronto,
and then in Toronto.
And you recorded Prima Donna with the BBC Symphony.
With the BBC Symphony,
which is no slouch of an orchestra.
No, it's amazing.
But you actually raised money for that project through
Pledge Music.
Pledge Music. I was going to say an organization called Pledge Music. Tell us a little bit about how that worked and why you decided to use.
Well, I mean, the recording that I have of Prima Donna, it was done in a studio. It was done at Maida Vale Studios, which is a very famous recording studio in London. And that doesn't really happen much anymore. I mean, more likely you'll get like a live version, on CD now, because it's just too expensive, and the audience has shrunk so much due to age and also due to just, I don't know, the shifting sands of time. But I really wanted a studio recording for this record, so I just decided to go out to my fans and ask them to help fund it, and they did, and through Pledge Music. And
crowdfunding.
Yeah, crowdfunding, which I think is
a direct-to-fan platform, is it?
Yeah, and it goes.
And are others using this?
Oh, a lot of people use it. Yeah. Now, I mean, everything. Now that music is basically free. I mean, on one hand, that's a great thing, but on the other hand, it's quite difficult if you want to record operas. So that's I feel like crowdfunding is a perfect opportunity for that.
Yeah.
If you want the big projects, you got to pay for them.
Right. And people are willing to help you.
Yes.
That's amazing.
I think if it's put in a gentle and kind fashion.
Yes. I was wondering, when you made that transition to opera, how different is it to create and mount an opera compared to doing another kind of all the other shows?
It's incredible.
Just a pop album.
It's almost diametrically opposed.
Is it? Yeah.
When you're a pop musician and also a front person in a band, like the singer, you do have liberty to kind of, take up a lot of space and be. It's understandable that everybody's going to want to put forth your vision. That with opera doesn't fly off the bat. I mean, there's a lot, whether it's the conductor or the singers or just the general time that you're allotted in terms of working with the symphony orchestra. There's not, you can't just sort of sit back and revel in it. Everything has to be done very, very quickly and very, very
It's
successfully.
immediate,
You have to be willing to work with people. So it's a serious group effort.
Right.
And
It sounds very complex.
yeah, and I love it
That
because
together.
it has to become about the music in the end of the day. You can't. You have to sort of discard the personalities. So there's of course massive personalities that one has to deal with. So it's. It's exciting. It's kind of like being at war, actually.
Let's go back to your songwriting.
Bloodless
I'm
war.
always fascinated to talk to songwriters
Yeah.
about what motivates you to come up with a song. I mean, do you just sort of sit in your chair and go, okay, today I'm going to come up with 3 songs? Or are you literally going to Dairy Queen and getting an ice cream cone and thinking, there's a bird in the tree, I think I can write about that.
Or do you
Dairy
get
bird.
commissioned to do things?
Dairy
No,
Queen might be a good example.
Where did that come from?
Bird Queen. No, I don't know. I mean, I've written songs for so many years that at this point it's become
Second nature.
Second nature. In fact, the other day I was in London, England, working with Florence Welsh. She's going to sing on my new album.
Florence and the
Right. Tell us
Machine.
about
Florence and the
Yeah.
Machine.
Yeah.
And I was
Yeah.
there, and I had this. I was jet lagged and woke up at 6 in the morning and had a few hours to spare. So I just walked through London in the morning, and I knew pretty much that at the end of that 3-hour period, I'd have a song. It's something that I can kind of put into action, and so it happens quite naturally. But yes, I'm working with Florence on an album.
Yeah, tell us about It's a
Well, I'm putting out
Sonics,
as well on Deutsche. Prima Donna came out on Deutsche Grammophon, and my next Deutsche Grammophon project is called, I think we're calling it Take All My Loves, but it's a compilation of works that of Shakespeare sonnets that I've put music to, and one of the guests is Florence Welsh. She's singing sonnet 29, When in Disgrace with Fortune in Men's Eyes, and then also there's this opera singer Anna Prohaska who's quite well known,
yeah.
Yeah.
and she's singing
Wonderful.
5 of them as well with the BBC Symphony, and then I do the other ones as well, and it's a big
Sounds very
project
interesting.
actually,
That's huge.
and it's
And-
coming out in conjunction with the anniversary of Shakespeare's death, which is April 23rd.
The 400th.
The 400th
Yeah.
anniversary.
Yeah. And,
You've
wow.
also had some experience in film. You were actually an
Yes.
actor in a Martin Scorsese film.
Yeah, somewhat of an actor.
Yeah, you and your father.
I don't know how you weren't nominated for an Oscar, but your father, as Helen mentioned, was also in the film.
Yes, and my
Is that-
sister was in it as
And
well.
your sister as
my
well.
God.
Yeah.
Is that something that you
The
would
Aviator.
want to do, The Aviator?
Yeah.
Would you want to do film work again? Would you want to score films?
I'm
Would you want to
offered.
act
I'm
again?
offered. I'm not offered roles necessarily. I did do one role once in a movie called Heights, where I had a few scenes with Glenn Close, actually. But it's not something that I pursue.
What about scoring
valiantly. Scoring films, yeah, perhaps. I mean, it's all open. My father's a real actor. My father went to acting school, and he's had some pretty major roles actually. But it's not something that I would discard. There seems to be some sort of
Well, you've got a
spark
lot on
there
the ball as
occasionally.
it is.
Yeah. Well, one of the other projects I wanted to ask you about was a commission for the Canadian Opera Company
Yes,
for
I
2017.
am continuing that opera.
Yeah, and that
thread.
is Hadrian?
Yes, Hadrian. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
with the COC. I'm doing that is premiering in 2018.
18, yeah.
And I'm working with Daniel McIver, the Canadian playwright. He's doing the libretto, and no, that's a major
That's
job
so. How
of
did you
work.
come up with Hadrian?
Well, I've been a big fan of the novel Memoirs of Hadrian by by Yourcenar, which is a book from the 40s, which is really fabulous. Anyways, so between that and the actual story, historical facts, it's just always been a fascinating. I think what I love about it the most is how current that period is in terms of what we're going through today. For instance, I mean, Hadrian was
Roman emperor.
Roman emperor, and he was definitely gay, and Antinous, his lover, was basically his companion, and that was sort of taken away from him. Even a lot of the things that he experienced in that day and age are still around today, i.e., to be gay was not an easy thing. The other thing too is that Hadrian created Palestine, and a lot of those same borders that are today so relevant and sadly fought over still were put in place by him. So and also it's the end of it's the beginning of the end of the Roman Empire, and we're certainly at the end of several empires.
This is true.
I want to ask you, you're married to Jorn Weisbrot, who is the director of Luminato, which you mentioned a few minutes ago. You're also the father of a young daughter.
Yes.
Viva, wonderful name.
Yes, yes.
Whose mother is the daughter of Leonard Cohen.
Yeah.
How has marriage and fatherhood affected your approach to music? And unfortunately, we got about 30 seconds left. That's a loaded question.
I mean, I've always wanted the big experiences in life, and I certainly have gotten them. Whether it's writing operas or being married or having children, I don't really dally in my life. So it's. I think it's paying off. I mean,
It certainly seems to
it's a lot of work, but I think like anything with a lot of work,
we've
it's
got
a
to
lot of
interrupt
joy.
you there. Thanks so much for
Rufus,
joining us.
thank you very much. It's really been a pleasure, and we'll be back with more Toronto Files after the break.